They all float down here. Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. So today we're going to be talking about It Chapter 2, and this is going to be a non-spoiler review as well, so you don't have to worry about that. So basically, It Chapter 2, this takes place 27 years after the events of the original, or Chapter 1, and basically all of the Losers Club are now grown up, they're adults, they're off living their own lives, doing their own things, and they end up getting a call from Mike, who is still in Derry, and basically tells them that Pennywise is back, and so they all have to come back, band together once again to try and take it out forever this time. So this movie, I was really nervous going into it just because I did see, the Rotten Tomatoes score going in, and I try to avoid that, try to go in a lot of times with different films with an open mind. But anytime it's a big film, something I'm really looking forward to, can't help but just, kind of glance at those at least. And I think the last I saw was like a 68%. And so I was a little worried going into this film. But I can tell you guys, right off that I actually really did enjoy this film. And I would say it's pretty close, if not right on par, with Chapter 1, at least in my opinion. And now we'll kind of go into, my reasons why I think that is. So first off, just as far as like the opening goes, I thought it had a really strong opening. And for those who are fans of the book, you will see a scene that is ripped directly from the book and implemented into the movie. Won't mention what it is, but if you have seen the trailers, you probably know what I'm talking about. But I thought they did a really good job with that. Basically took that right from the book and put it into the film. And then just the opening title sequence I thought was like really cool. So that was something, started off with a bang, and then from there, you pretty much, we get reacquainted with all the Losers Club. So they, we all kind of get to see what they've been up to, very briefly. And then basically Mike, he calls them back, and they all end up meeting up at the Chinese restaurant, which is something that, was done in the miniseries. So that was cool to see that brought back again this time around. And it's just nice as far as like that scene goes too. You really get to see the these guys were all friends 27 years ago, and they're all kind of catching up, and you really get the feeling that these guys really cared about each other. So I thought that was a really nice touch. As far as just the adult cast goes, I thought that everyone was pretty much spot on. They did a good job making it believable that these kids, these are who they, grew up to be. Some of the characters got a little bit more, I would say, the screen time, but a little bit more to work with as well. You guys have probably heard up to this point, Bill Hader kind of steals the show as the grown-up version of Richie, but you also have James Ranson, who plays Eddie. Those two characters, I would say, are definitely probably the standouts as far as most material to work with in this film. So they did a really good job, and they really captured those nuances of the younger versions of the Losers. Now, that doesn't mean, like I said, I liked all the performances. James McAvoy was great. Jessica Chastain was great, as well as Beverly, and even some of the other newcomers, which I'm not as familiar with the work, except for Mike, who I believe was the Old Spice guy. They all did a good job as well. So, good performances all around. Now, this movie is, I want to say it's like around like 2 hours and 45 minutes. This is something that, again, was a little nervous going into, wondering if it could feel a little draggy, and I had heard, some people making that comment, but I don't feel like that's the case, actually, with this film. I thought pretty much for the most part that it had a good pace to it, and I think there were like several factors that played into that. One was the use of Pennywise, which I heard people mentioning that, you don't really get to see a lot of him, and I'm not sure if they're maybe referring to exactly seeing Pennywise the clown, and that could be the case, and I guess you could say that. But if you're referring to Pennywise as, everything that he can kind of turn into and manipulate and things like that, he's in this film like a good amount, and so I thought they did a good job of using him in several different parts of the film. I also thought the comedy, I thought that was done well and mixed well with the horror aspects of this film. There's probably a little bit more comedy to this film maybe than Chapter 1, and a good part of that goes to Bill Hader and then James Ranson, their characters of Richie and Eddie. They have a lot of that pretty much comes from them, but I thought it did a good job of keeping the audience engaged while at the same time, when the horror aspect showed up, it didn't take you out of the film as well, at least in my opinion. Another thing that I really liked about this movie was that there are a lot of jump scares. I will give you guys a heads up for that, so if you're one who don't like jump scares, because you get scared easily, just a heads up going into this film. But for me, jump scares, I hate when films, horror films, they use cheap jump scares. So when it's like, someone's like looking out a window and all of a sudden a bird smacks up against it. And it's just these fake, cheap jump scares. I don't think that's the case with It Chapter 2 at all. I think that they made good use of those. So when there is a jump scare and you're just waiting for something to happen, something actually happens and there's like a creepy, weird monster or creature, looking behind the corner or whatever. And I liked a lot of the different designs of the creatures and monsters that they used in this film. I thought they were really cool. There was one specifically involving Beverly. Actually, it was Ben's story, but Beverly was like in it. And I thought that was probably one of my favorites that throughout like all the different flashbacks in the film. But something just to kind of tie into that too is that there was a decent amount of CGI in the film, but it wasn't something that I thought was bad. Because I have seen people mention that, the CGI was awful, it didn't look good at all. I didn't think that was the case at all. I thought that, for some of these creatures, it actually, it does remind me a little bit of the remake of Evil Dead. I thought that was a pretty, solid like remake, and it reminds me of what some of the demons and stuff in certain aspects of this film kind of reminded me of that. So take that for what it is. But I thought the CGI was done well. Even with like Pennywise, there wasn't anything that completely I'm like, oh, that looks terrible. I thought they had a good use of both, some practical effects and the CGI. So there was a good balance to that as well. Now, I guess if you can say one negative thing about the film is that there wasn't really anything that I was like truly scared of. But to be fair, even with Chapter 1, there wasn't anything that I was like, oh man, I'm going to have a hard time sleeping tonight. And that's probably because, like me, I've seen so many horror films that it's really hard to kind of like creep me out and scare me. So I don't think that's like really a big fault for this film. But there were definitely some jump scares that got me a little bit. And like I said, they were, actual, good jump scares, not those fake bullcrap that we get in a lot of horror films. I thought the cinematography for the film was fantastic. Everything was shot really well. A lot of the sets were done really nicely. And I think from what I heard or what I've seen like recently, that Andy Muschietti wants to do like a special, like a director's cut, which would be awesome, kind of splicing together both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 and interweaving those. I really hope we get that because that would be super cool. And just as far as there are 2 cameos in this film, so keep an eye out for that. I wonder if some of you guys, if you're die-hard It fans and then Stephen King fans, you'll probably pick up both of them. But one of them, it'll be interesting to see if some people miss, because I could easily see some people not noticing who this person is. So that one's earlier on in the film, but definitely keep an eye out for that. If you're fans of It and Stephen King, I think you'll really appreciate both of those. Now, one of the big problems that people had with the miniseries was just that, the ending and just the whole second part of the series, people just didn't think was as good as part 1. I thought here they did a better job of like kind of wrapping that up. And then with Pennywise's final form, I thought was just done a little bit better. Obviously, they have a lot more money and effects and stuff to work with now, where it's how many years later. But yeah, I thought they did a pretty good job wrapping things up. There was a little bit of a silly aspect to their final confrontation with Pennywise. I won't go into detail with that, but when you guys see the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I thought pretty much for the most part they did a good job wrapping up the film, wrapping up this saga, and kind of giving closure to to everybody and to the audience. So overall, I really like this film. I think it's a good companion piece to It Chapter 1, and it'll be nice, like I said, if we do end up getting that director's cut of both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, intersplicing those. So please, Andy Muschietti, please give that to us. That would be so cool. But I think that for the most part, go into this film with an open mind, try not to pay attention to the critics, And I think that if you are a fan of It Chapter 1, you like the miniseries and stuff like that, I think this is a worthy successor. It's a nice fall film, something I'm glad that we get this year. We don't really usually get a lot of great scary movies that come out around this time of year, so whenever there is one, I'm really thankful for that. So overall, I give It Chapter 2 a 9 out of 10. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought of the film if you have seen it down below in the comments. Make sure no spoilers, just because it is opening weekend. Want to give everyone a chance to go see the film. But let me know what you thought down below in the comments, and also, did you like Chapter 1 or did you like Chapter 2 better? And if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to go ahead and hit subscribe, because as I mentioned in my previous video, which I did the Pennywise mask review for the Trick or Treat Studios Deluxe Edition, which, by the way, guys, thank you. That video is doing really well, and I appreciate all the love that you guys are showing it, so thank you so much for that. But in there, I mentioned that I'm going to be doing a bunch of reviews for different, sci-fi horror films pretty much throughout the month of September and October, because this is my favorite time of year. So definitely, keep an eye out for that. Gonna be a lot of stuff that I'm gonna be talking about that are like favorite films of mine. So make sure, again, just hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button, so that way you get notifications for all my videos that'll be coming out. And as always, guys, make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat.